All right, guys, welcome back. Here I have a video titled "The UK is a Dystopia and I am leaving soon." I want to watch this video because I have this running theory of why the West is really going downhill. If nothing changes, places like the UK, the United States, Canada, and some others are going to get worse, way worse. And I just want to see what's going on in the UK to see if it matches anything that's going on here. So let's go ahead and find out.
Talking about what it's like to live in the UK. I'm from the UK, I'm from Edinburgh, Scotland, and I live in Edinburgh, Scotland. I'm working full-time for a bank, and I am earning only £19,200 a year after tax and national insurance. The average salary when I was born in 1987 was about £19,200. I am earning the average salary in 2024, almost 2025. I'm only earning the average salary in the UK in 1987. Yes. The average house price in 1987, the year I was born, was that. The average salary is that. Today in the UK, the average salary is this. And in the UK, the average house price is this. I looked at the figures earlier,
And that's the same thing as here. I actually want to say, and I don't know the pound to conversion, but I know if you look this up, I want to say the average house cost in the United States is over $450,000. Insanity. And I think the median average income is like $60K a year. So can you imagine?
I was absolutely shocked. So yes, old timers or the baby boomers in this country, they'll say, I worked a lot, and I paid for my house. But yeah, it was a lot easier to buy a house back in the 70s, in the 80s, and the 90s, compared to what it's like nowadays. So I'm happy to be from Scotland. I had a very nice upbringing, free education. We have kind of a good free healthcare system. It's not really free. It used to be a lot better than what it is today. But yes, the point of this video today is to explain why I've decided to leave the UK. It's not affordable here. If you want a high standard lifestyle, if you want to live by yourself, have a car, work full time but for not too long, if you want to retire early, the UK is not the place. It's ridiculously expensive here. The average salary now is this. Again, like, that is not enough. That is not enough for people to live a high standard lifestyle in what's supposed to be a first world country. This is not a first world country. This is a dystopia, pretending to be a first world country that has a very low standard. The crime rate's getting higher. Illegal immigration or illegal migration, whatever you want to call it, is getting higher. We have politicians that don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to fix anything. They just make things worse. We have a prime minister in office now who just exacerbates all the issues that we've got, doesn't bother to actually address them and fix them, just makes them worse.
And that's the thing, right? Because it's very hard to have this conversation because you have to make sure that you're talking to the right people, right? I got on here, I want to say a couple months ago, and I was talking about this. And what ended up happening was I attracted different types of people. The people who completely understood where I was coming from. Then I got the work harder crowd, right? And the one thing that I'm noticing is that when the work harder crowd comes, it's always, I feel like I'm being gaslighted, right? It's like that's what I heard like my whole life. Where it's like, oh, just suck it up, be a man, make sure you're working 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours, 18 hours. That's normal, yada yada. But it's not normal. It's normal for regular average guys who are in poverty or poor. But whenever we look across the field, we're seeing a lot of people who are working way less, who have 10 times, 20 times more than what we have. And so that's not weird to you guys that you're just like, like, why do they get to have more but doing less? Meanwhile, we're working 10, 12, 14, 16 hours and we can't even barely afford everything. Oh, well, you just have to make sure you're getting new skills and blah, blah, blah. It's like, bro, everybody can't do that. That's the thing that kind of pisses me off the most, is because I get where you're coming from. And are you right? Technically, yes. But people have to be left behind. And that's kind of one of my theories that's going on right now. Now, he said illegal immigration. I don't think it's illegal. I think these countries are like, yeah, welcome in, because think about what's going on, right? Like we said, the cost of living is rising crazy, but the amount we're getting paid is not matching that at all. So who is going to be willing to work for a lot less when we understand the power of how much it's supposed to cost? A lot of these people who are coming from less than desirable countries, they're like, how long do I have to work? I'm used to working 10, 12, 14 hours for nothing. So I'll work here and still get paid technically nothing, but at least I get all these nice amenities that I didn't used to have. And so that's what I think is kind of going on here. It's like, as long as these people are flooding in, that's fine with them, because they're just going to replace the working class who understands their value. Does that make sense? Let me go ahead and let him continue. I've been yapping for a minute.
There is no hope for this country.
But also, I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. What do you guys think?
The UK. This place is done. This place, the UK, doesn't matter where, Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland, this is not an up-and-coming country. The UK has had its glory days. It's had its highs. Probably the best time in this country to be a working adult was probably when I was born, in the 80s and the 90s, maybe even the early 2000s. But as things are now, with the cost of living and all the issues that we are facing here, it doesn't matter if you're British or not. If you're living here in the UK and if you're working here full time, you already know what I'm talking about. And it's really important that well, for me, I'm not going to just continue living and working in the UK, earning what I earn, paying what I'm paying for rent, groceries, bills, you name it. The prices are going up for everything. I love driving. I have a driving license. I don't have a car. Why? Well, because I live in the city. I don't really need a car, but it would be really nice to have a car. If I got a car, I would have to pay, well, for the car, for the insurance, for the road tax, for the maintenance, and I don't even have a parking space, so I would have to pay for a parking permit. So excluding the car, that's 4 big payments I need to make every year. So for me, based on the salary that I'm earning, I cannot afford to live in the city by myself and have a car and have a high standard lifestyle. For example, going to the gym, doing activities, everything costs money, right? So what does that leave one to do? Yes, we need money. Some people don't need to work, and that's great for them, but if you're like me, you need to earn a living. You need to go out and earn money to pay for your life. Now, when you're working, you shouldn't be working just to survive. Mm-hmm. If you can excuse me, I'm a bit slow in this video. I'm just shocked at what I've been seeing recently. One should not be working full time in what's supposed to be a first world country just to survive.
And that's the thing that I don't get about like the work harder crowd, because the work harder crowd, I get what they're saying, but my thing is, if you're working 10, 12, 14, 16 hours a day, you're okay with that because that's your mentality. The average person does not think that way. The average person is like, you know what, working 6, 8 hours, then they like, I'm going to go work out, then I'm going to go on a date or spend time with my children. They have other areas of their life that gives them value versus being valuable at work. Does that make sense? Because a lot of guys are get their self-esteem and their value by their output as far as working, when a lot of us don't have that type of connection. I get my value personally from spending time with my wife, spending time with my kids, spending time at a job and providing for food on the table, not providing the whole entire time, or at least, and I should say this, providing monetarily, because provision is a lot more than money. And for this work harder crowd, they're like, well, that's all you really care about is just working harder and making a lot more money. And I don't think that's like, all of us would choose healthy family life, healthy community, healthy job versus unhealthy, all those things, but we're making a bunch of money. You know what I mean? Money is not that important as far as replacing the things that human connection community fulfills in the average human being. And you can't have that type of lifestyle if you're working 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 hours a day. Let's be honest.
Most people that work in this country, they cannot even save money. So after you've paid your rent and your bills and all your fees, even if you've made cuts, for example, you've decided to stop paying for Disney Plus or Netflix or something like that, even if you're just paying for the necessities, even after paying for those, you have literally nothing left to enjoy.
And he's 100% right about that, because if you go into the dating side of the internet or the world, they're saying if you don't make a certain amount, you shouldn't be dating. If you don't have at least this much in your bank account, you shouldn't be dating. You should be putting your head down and working and working and working. It's like, bro, the average person cannot go that long without a relationship without them starting to be weird. Does that make sense? And I don't mean just a relationship as you're sleeping with somebody. I mean friendships. I mean relationships. Like all types of relationships. Let's not pretend that let's not pretend that it's like human connection isn't important. It's very important. A person who is not interacting with the world socially, a person who is not getting together with an individual in a romantic fashion is going to jack up our psyche. And I'm tired of people pretending like this doesn't matter. It's like, oh, just go ahead, work. You're young. It's like, I'm not trying to sacrifice my youth for cash. You know what I'm saying? Because if there's one thing that's more valuable than whatever it is that I'm doing is your youth. Your youth. How many people, if they're 40 plus, would trade everything you have to go back to when you're 20? Come on now. And then when you're in your 20s, you're like, oh, well, go ahead and sacrifice them. No, I don't want to sacrifice my 20s for money. You know what I'm saying?
Now, whose fault is this? For what's become of this country with the cost of living? I'm not going to point fingers and point at one person, of course. Is it the government's fault? It may not be the government's fault for everything, but they are in a position to fix these issues. They don't need to magically make these issues disappear, but they need to at least help people. Recently, in the UK, they have took away a certain benefit from a certain group of people who are pensioners with disabilities. And this benefit that the UK government has taken from them is heat. So you've got old pensioners with disabilities who don't earn a lot. They're on state pension. They've been unable to work and save a lot of money for their pension. They may not have private pension. They have what they have. And winter is coming here in the UK. And winter is long. And winter is very cold. And people need heat. These people need heat in their homes. The government have taken it away. They've decided to make cuts. And they've chose to take away this benefit where they provide funding for heating these people's homes during the winter. And they're not getting it anymore. That is not a government I want to pay tax to. The amount of tax that we pay in the UK is quite high. It's quite high, even compared to other countries like Australia and the USA. I'm taxed 20%, that's income tax, 20%. So for every £100 I earn, they take £20 away. Plus national insurance, which is basically, if you're American, national insurance is like your social security. So I pay about 7% national insurance, so that's 27%. So they take £27 for every £100 that I earn. So when you add it all up, it's quite a lot. So when I'm looking at my paycheck and I look at how much they've taken, that's quite a substantial figure. That is an amount of money that I could actually do something with. Now, I don't mind paying tax, but at rates that high, it's quite concerning, especially when you're living in a country where they're making cuts, like taking vulnerable people's heating away.
That's actually wild. I have not heard of that. I wonder why they took it away and then where they're reallocating that money.
So the UK is going downhill. This is not a good country to live in. It's not a good country to actually grow up in and work. The best thing you can do, if you're British, born here, schooled here, if you're young and working, especially if you're ambitious and adventurous, the best thing you can do is get out of the UK. Now, I know what it's like to live in other countries because I have lived in other countries. I've lived in Japan for about almost 9 years. I have lived in the USA as well for a short time. But because I've spent a lot of my life in Japan, things are not perfect. No country is perfect, absolutely not. Japan is not perfect. But if I compare Japan to the UK when it comes to standard of living and how much you can earn and what they deduct from your paycheck, when I was working in Japan, they deducted about 10% income tax. That's half of what I pay. And I was earning more, actually, at the time. So I was making a lot of money in Japan. Healthcare is not free there, but the healthcare system is very good. You're not waiting months to see a doctor in Japan. You are paying probably about 100 to 200 pounds per month on health insurance, but you are getting top quality healthcare quickly when you need it. Not only that, the standard of life in Japan is far higher than that of the UK when it comes to safety.
Now, he's talking about Japan. From what I've heard and researched about Japan, I mean, he's lived there, so maybe he knows better, right? But from what I've seen, bro, their work culture insane, right? And cost of living, I think their cost of living is high, but it's not like it's still good for how much you're getting paid. But I've heard Japan's like a little bit on the expensive side, and they have like crazy long work hours. So I mean, maybe it's different because maybe he knows something I don't, but that's what I've seen and heard.
When it comes to cleanliness of the streets, I'm not saying their government is perfect, but they make a lot of good decisions that make sense. Their infrastructure is incredible. They have low prices for food and eating out. So a lot of people eat out in Japan, like almost every day. It's very common for people to just go to a nice restaurant, eat some nice food. There's all different kinds of restaurants there. Not in the UK, no. If you're eating out every day in the UK, you must be rich. Because going to a restaurant here in the UK will cost you, if you're just ordering one main with a side and a drink, that's going to cost you about £48, about $50. And they add a 10% service fee. Yeah, so you're paying about £44, about $54 by yourself to eat. In Japan, you can eat good food at a nice restaurant for less than half that. I remember literally paying about £8 for dining in a restaurant in Japan, and that's including a drink. Yeah, so going out to eat out doesn't break the bank in Japan. It does here though. So what does that leave you to do? That just leaves you to go to the supermarket a lot, cook. I like cooking, but it's just nice to eat out sometimes, especially if you're working long hours. If you've made it to this part of the video, then thank you for staying tuned. I mean, it's almost 16 minutes now in this video. I am leaving the UK soon. I'm quitting my job. I appreciate the good things about this country, I really do. But the way I see it, this country is not getting better. Everything is getting more expensive. The government does not care about people at all in this country. They do not care about the rising electric bills, the rising gas bills. They're probably going to increase the tax and national insurance pretty soon. They're reducing benefits that people need, not that people want, but there are people in this country that seriously need these benefits, and they're being stripped away. Now, another thing that, of course, is no one's fault, but the UK doesn't exactly have the best weather. And that's quite a big thing.
At all. That's the one thing that gets me every time. Every picture that I see of the UK, bro, it's cloudy. Just straight clouds, no sun. I'm like, how do people not have chronic depression here? Because for me, I don't know you guys are anything like me, but for me, I get my energy from the sun. So if it's cloudy or if it's a rainy day, I feel like lazy for the whole day. But every picture I see of the UK, cloudy. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do good here. That and the food doesn't look appetizing either. So, but anyway.
So when you look outside and it's a low, grey, thick sky and it's cold and it's wet, it doesn't really make you feel happy. And if I'm going to live in an expensive country, the weather better be nice. Seriously, I'm not going to settle for living in an expensive country where the weather is shit most of the year. So, if you want to follow my channel and see where I go, then hit the subscribe button.
And yeah, you guys, I'll have a link to this video down below if you want to check out any more of his content. But man, I think he's right. I think a lot of us are starting to realize that these first world countries are the equivalent of a t-shirt with the word Gucci on it, right? That costs $300. You know, we're like, wait a minute, like, is there actually any real value here? Is this material actually made out of something that's going to be high quality? And it's like, no, what it has is perceived value. It looks good. And other people outside looking in, when they look at it, they're like, oh my God, this is everything. But when we start to compare value versus if you go to a different country and their value, we realize you're getting ripped off. And so what I'm realizing just from this talk that he had, I think the governments and the politicians, they don't care about the people. They care about the country. And when it comes to the country, they care about the bottom line. How much money are we making and how much money can I stuff my pockets with? You get what I'm saying? And so that's why I think we're having this country musical chairs where we're getting a whole new workforce coming in. Meanwhile, the people who are like, this isn't worth it, we're getting up, we're getting digital marketing skills, and you're leaving. So yeah, man, if you guys haven't gone to digital marketing, you're thinking about getting digital marketing, having an online career or something of that nature, check the description box below. But yeah, I completely agree with him, man. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments, and then I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, peace out.